Hello and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to go through the very basic steps to digitize your own artwork in Hatch Embroidery software. I am using version 3.0 as of the recording of this video, and we're going to take this extremely simple image and convert it into an embroidery design that you can use on your embroidery machine. Let's get started. So here we are at the home screen with the Getting Started section in Hatch Embroidery 3. I will specify that this is the digitizer level of ownership for a license for Hatch Embroidery 3. So if you're using a lower tier version of Hatch, then you may not have the options that I'm talking about today. But if you're interested, you can get a 30-day free trial from their website. Now we're going to click New and open up a new design. And we're going to insert our artwork. You can either click and drag from from like Windows Explorer, or you can click on the artwork button to insert the artwork. And here is our happy little face. Look at that happy little face. Fantastic. We're going to expand the size of this by grabbing either the corners, and it will keep its scale, just like that. And then I'm going to set the 0 position here, just like that, just to make sure it's centered. I'm very OCD about that. Now, over here, you'll see in the toolboxes, there's your digitize menu. There is an option for circle or oval, which is very easy, which would make the point of this video completely moot because you could just use that, which is great, but not necessarily what I want to do with this video. I want to teach you how to actually use like digitize close shape and digitize open shape today. So when you're looking at a design like this, you're going to evaluate the colors and what order you want to do the colors in to produce the best results. Usually, just like any kind of artwork, you would start with the background and work your way forward. So in this case, we're going to start with this lighter purple fuchsia thing background, and then go with white, and then end with the dark purple, because the dark purple is basically the accents that are the literal last thing that you do. So that's what we're going to start with. And in order to do that, we just click Digitize Shape. And then we go down and we can select a color. I'm just going to go with like whatever color is the best match. Now, if you recall from the previous video, you're going to left click if you want hard turns. So a 90-degree turn. So 3 left clicks, hit enter. And that is not exactly a circle. I don't know about you all. I went to high school at the very least, and I know for a fact that is not a circle. So we're going to undo that. And instead, we want to have soft curves. So we're going to use right click as indicated by the blue dot that popped up. Right click, right click, right click, and then hit enter. And you have a beautiful little circle. Now, of course, the circle is covering up our face now, and we're like kittens. We can't see the rest of it. But that's because I have True View on. So True View will show you what it would, like a computer render of what it thinks it's going to look like once it's stitched out. It's pretty accurate. So always make sure to kind of look it over. Because sometimes you'll get like a connection line, and you'll see that like in the middle here. It happens to be down here at the bottom, so that's fine. But as you add more stitching and changing the colors, you'll definitely see that. And that is for a video later. I don't want to, overwhelm you guys with these advanced topics in this video. So we're going to toggle off True View, and then we can just see like the stitching. Now, what we're going to do at this point is explain why I didn't go all the way out to the edge. And the reason I didn't go all the way out to the edge is because I am going to want this border to basically be a nice fluid satin stitch at the end, of course. But what you don't want is to have a little bit of this light pink peeking out, or not enough of the purple covering it up over here. And so I usually go about halfway through those borders or overlap. I overlap a tiny bit to act as pull compensation. So let's take a moment and let's talk about pull compensation. So pull compensation is what happens when you have hooped your fabric or object that you're going to be embroidering to, and it may stretch one way, stretch another. The tension of the stitching in the area, or even the number of layers in the area, can start to pull your design and your fabric inward. And so you'll get a little bit of stretching and a tiny bit of offset. This is why I don't pre-stretch anything when I'm hooping, and I tend to float unless I'm using one of my magnetic hoops. So, which I actually have like videos on that somewhere else. So that's different from this topic. But pull compensation can actually be accounted for and adjusted programmatically inside the application if you want by each stitched object. I'll show you in just a second. Or you can just have that tiny bit of overlap in between, and of course always test your designs, stitch them out before you do anything else with them on an expensive garment, or maybe even putting them up for sale. So if you want to look at what the pull compensation is for a stitch object, so click on the object inside your sequence and then go to the stitching tab under object properties. And down here, you'll see pull compensation. It's completely not even highlighted because for whatever reason, it didn't click it, but that's fine. We're fine. So you'll see here, it automatically accounts for a little bit of pull compensation. If you have a very dense design, or you are planning to stitch this to, let's say, like a beanie, like I'm wearing a beanie for this video, then you would want to crank this up a little bit, but not too much. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you crank it up. So we're going to select this and we're going to just do some wild number like 2/10. Wham! And that's wild. It's huge. See, it kind of just expanded beyond where it really should have. But that's what I mean by the pull compensation. So if you see how wild these little zigzags are for the stitching, that's just compensating for a potential in the pull in the stitch direction. So you can see it stitching at, I want to be smart and say like a 15-degree angle, thereabouts. But you can put that, we're going to, ooh, it won't let me undo it. Oh my gosh. 1, 2, 3, 8. Yay. Okay. There. So we're just going to put it back to about where it was, because I don't really need to worry about it for the purposes of this video, but I am wanting to explain why I did that little stent, just so you're like, what the heck a doodle is going on. I don't like to skip steps, but I also don't like to over explain. So now we're going to move on and do the next color. So we've done the light pink, fuchsia, lavender-esque color. Now let's go on and do the whites of the eyes. If you want, you can use the circle and the oval tool. I'll actually do that if you like, since now we know how to like left click versus right click, create a circle. So I'm going to right click in the center here of the eyeball and just expand, and then left click, and I'm gonna just hit enter. Boop, like that. Now, the reason that I didn't keep going is because with the circle tool, you can do this. So that is going to give you your diameter, but you can also then just, make it more of an oval shape. But if you just press enter, then it'll make it a circle, like a pure circle. So that's why I hit enter like that. But on the second click, you can actually adjust it to make it more of an oval, which is pretty cool if you think about it. Now, to ensure that we don't do anything terribly silly, like making this pink, I'm going to select it and go down to the bottom here and find white, but I don't have it. I'm just going to sing song for no reason. White. Ghost white. Where's just pure where it's white? Why does it look blue? Okay, well, you know, this is fine. We're gonna go with that. Okay, so now we can just close the thread colors. Now we have this beautiful circle right here, but we don't want to kind of, you know, try to create the second one. So we can right click and we can select copy, and then we can select paste. Boop. And then we can take it and we can move it over to the other side. One of the things that I'm nitpicky about is going back and looking up at the top section here to see its position. And its Y position is what we care about the most. So we're going to copy the Y position on the original object, go down to the bottom and select the new one. And it's only off by a smidge, but it would drive me nuts. So paste that in there and hit enter, and it does align it just teeniest bit. But you'll thank yourself later, because if you ever wanted to blow this design up to be huge, that little difference grows as you expand the size of the design. So now if you want to see what it looks like, we can toggle, and we can be scared to death by the death void stare, because there you go. And as you can see in this pink section here, we've got that weird looking line. Now, mind you, there are ways to reduce that, and I'll go over that at the very end. But let's now go and do the dark purple. Okay, we're gonna toggle off true view again so we can see what we're doing. We're gonna deselect by selecting anywhere in the sequence that is not your actual object, and we're gonna select the darker purple. Thankfully, I have a deep purple down here at the bottom. Now, what we could do is we could just go here and here, just like we did for the whites of the eyes. Or we can try to minimize the amount of jumps that happen as you do the stitch out. So what I mean by minimizing the number of jumps is that basically every time the needle has to jump to get to a new location, most machines are programmed to cut at a certain distance and then restart, which can create a huge mess underneath your embroidery design. That's why sometimes doing these embroidery designs is like seeing into the future, because you have to understand where everything needs to go and in what order that needs to be done. Hence starting with something simple like this very cute pink smiley face. So what I'm getting at is basically we do this eyeball, and then it cuts and jumps, boop, and then it does this eyeball, and then what for it? So if you're thinking, oh, I'll go back over here and I'll do the purple, well, now you have to cut and jump over here, and then cut and jump back to do that eyeball, and then cut and jump to do the smile. So since you're already on this eye, which would be its left eye, start with that one. It really makes it a lot simpler. So we'll look at the design and say, well, I want to do this iris here. Then I could just go down and do the smile, which would lead me up to doing this iris here. So it minimizes those cuts, and depending on the size of the design and the settings on your embroidery machine, it'll make things so much cleaner at the end. So let's do that. We're gonna grab that circle tool again, and we're gonna click in the center here, starting with this one, and whoop, and out, and I'm gonna hit enter, and enter twice. I did it twice there. You could do it both ways. It kind of just sets it. And we're not gonna copy and paste this one just yet. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna create the satin stitch here. So you'll see this is not considered a closed shape. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on the Digitize Open Shape option in your Digitize toolbox. You're going to go over here to the side, and from the object properties, you're gonna select satin, so that you have a satin stitch. Go ahead and leave the width the way that it is right now, because you don't know what you want the width to look like. And then we're gonna left click, right click, and left click. So you see the left clicks are anchoring the ends for you, and then you have the right click in the middle so that it knows to interpolate a curve in between those points. Hit enter to finish, and there you go. And I like that default width. If you want it to be smaller, then you click on the select tool, and it should by default select the last object that you created. And you can decrease the width here. It's a little slow if you do it this way. So I type in the numbers and hit enter, and then you can see it kind of closing up and making a much smaller shape. Now, you can see here, since we're not in true view, you can actually see where those jump stitches are. That's showing you that this is where it's ending, and it's going to jump from here to here. Now, depending on the amount of space in between those 2 points, your machine may not cut, and it may be fine, and it might just drag over that way. My machine, I have configured not to cut unless it's a pretty big distance, purely because I just don't, sometimes depending on the machine, cutting and then restarting is like not the best thing in the world. It really just depends. I have one needle on my Brother 1055X that just refuses to hook with the bobbin. I've changed it multiple times. It's just the one. It's super annoying. Needle number 3. So anywho, so you can see the jump right there. And we're just going to take a peep at how this looks in true view. And there we go. And we see that. Now we can go back over to our sequence, and we can right click on the original eyeball, copy, and then we can do paste. Now it already pasted at the bottom, so that's fine. If you had pasted and done this beforehand, you can always click and drag to reorder things, so you wouldn't have had to have worried about it. So I'm going to click select, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it over. But I'm also going to go back to the original and get that Y position and copy that, and then click on the new one and paste it and hit enter. And you saw it pop up a little bit there. You saw it, right? It's not just in my head. So you can see this, that will basically stitch this eyeball with the white, stitch this iris, and then come around and stitch this iris. And so it's much more efficient. Now for the next step, it doesn't really matter what you do. It's going to be a little bit, it's going to have a jump. Just pick the shortest location that you can based on where the stop stitch is for this one. So that would be over here. That's where I would want to start, and where you click is where you start. We're going to zoom out just a little bit because I couldn't see the whole thing. And we're going to click Digitized Closed Shape. But for this, we're going to go up to the top at the toolbar and select Outline, because we want this to be an outline. We don't want it to be a filled shape. And we're going to make sure satin is selected. It usually is by default. And I'm going to leave the default width on this. I actually like that default width. So we're going to right click, and you can see I'm right clicking right along the edge of where that, that little lavender underlay exists. Right click up here, right click, and then hit enter. And bam, you have yourself a satin stitch. Now, if we go to true view, that's what it looks like, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cute little smiley face there. But what's with the eyeballs? The eyeballs look a little lifeless, don't they? So we're going to go to select, and we're going to select each of these and go into the properties and just select satin. Same thing here. Select the other eyeball, select satin. There we are. And there we have our wonderful little design. Now, if you do want to talk about some advanced topics regarding this design to clean it up, stay tuned. I'll go through that. Now's the time to stop if you don't care. But I do care very much about you all understanding like how to make a good design instead of just giving you like the crappiest, easiest thing in the world. So that's why I'm going to go into it in this video instead of just having like a follow-on video. Let's make this a completionist thing. Okay. So let's talk about holes. So usually you can have up to about 2 or 3 layers of embroidery. Really just depends on your machine, its capabilities, type of fabric. Anyway, the answer is always it depends in software and in life. In this one, we're fine with 2 layers, especially since one of the layers for the eyeballs is actually going to be a satin stitch because it's basically just looping over like this. So it's going to be fine. The idea is that you can cut a hole in order to kind of remove a bit of the bulk underneath in that underlayer. So with that lavender section, we're just going to put 2 little holes in, and that's really easy to do with Hatch. So let's show you. All right, so back in Hatch, we're going to go up, we're going to select the underlay section here. And let's go ahead and we're going to leave it in true view. So I actually feel like I can see this a little better with true view. If you go into this, sometimes it can be a little difficult. It really just depends, but there is a hard line there. We're going to do this part in true view. So what you need to do is go back to the Digitize toolbox and click Digitize Holes. So we're going to click on that. And just like you would with digitizing an actual circle, you're going to do the exact same thing for digitizing the holes. And all this is going to do is cut a hole in this object that you've selected. So we're going to go have a little bit of overlap, right? We don't want to put it edge to edge because pull compensation will ensure that some of your fabric will show underneath. So we're going to right click, right click, right click, right click, and hit enter. You hit enter twice. Boom. And then go back out of true view and you can see where we've cut that hole right there. There's nothing behind that little eyeball. We're going to do the same thing over here. This time I will do it without true view. We're going to select our object, come back to the menu and do digitize holes, and right click, right click, right click, right click, hit enter and enter. And there's the hole. Now what this is going to do is allow you to cleanly stitch this area without creating a ton of bulk. So by the time you get to these eyeballs, they're not stitching through 3 layers of fabric. That's super important. Now the other thing that we can do as an advanced topic is we can actually change our stitch angles. Now, the stitch angle, if you go and select your piece here and then go into reshape, you can see you have your stop stitch, your start stitch up here, but this line here, oh, I was right, it's 15 degrees. This is your stitch angle. And one of the things you can do also to remove a little bit of bulk is to have your stitch angles opposite of each other. Now, the software is smart enough that it already did that. So you can see this background is stitching this way, like this, but the eyeballs are stitching this way. So they're kind of like weaving in and out of each other. So we don't necessarily need to change that right now. But this line here, depending on what thread you use, actually will show up. So one of the things I like to do with that is go to Fill, Tatami, and then just play around with some of the other designs to see what they look like. Now, some of these look pretty wild. Like this is like, what? But you can see that it's not as pronounced where you see that, that line. Right? But if we wanted to, say we wanted to keep this one, what we can do is we can change the stop position. See, here's where you start. What if you pull the stop position to the opposite end down here? Boom, and there you go, and it's gone. Now, what this will do is make it so that when you have to come back up to do the eyeball, that you cut and move, but it's cleaner look, so it kind of doesn't matter. The software will automatically, that's why it was placed up here. It's because the software said, oh, hey, they're going to want to stitch this white iris next. So I'm going to make it stop up here. So that's why once we started adding things to this, it started to adjust where the stop and the starts were. But if you want to fix that, you can go down here. If you're willing to accept the fact that it will cut and then jump, or even just jump, depending on your settings. If we put it back to where it was originally, and we just, or alternatively, choose a different background. Choose something that's not as severe looking. I like these at the bottom because they kind of look like fur, and they really don't look that wild once you start to stitch them out. Boop, haha, look at that. That's actually kind of cool looking. So once you're done with this whole design, you can go up to File and save your design. You can save it, that saves it to the EMB format. That's just Hatch's embroidery format, so that you can open up this file and you have your sequence and you can change things later. But if you want to export it, then you go to Export Design, choose a location, and we're just gonna save it, and the format, which I totally glossed over. I'm gonna leave this in here as a mistake because why not? So you can actually choose what you want in here. Most of the machines these days take whatever format you want to throw at it. I do have a brother, so I tend to save in PES format, but it's totally up to you what you want to save in. So there you have it. I hope that's helped you get a feel for how to do a basic manual digitization. Let's look at how to auto-digitize, which almost everyone loves to use, but I usually advise not to. But here's why. These computers are great, but the more complex the design, the harder it is for the application to kind of figure out how it wants to do things. And sometimes the results are not the most performant for the machine. You may get some really wonky results from it. I know that I personally have had a few designs where I'm like, why is that there? And what is that color? And I don't know what's going on. So it just depends on the number of colors and how complex it all is. Also, how clean the file is. The cleaner the file, the better it's going to be for you in terms of auto-digitizing. If you're just trying to learn things and you want to auto-digitize and then go in and manually clean it up, you can totally do that too. I'm going to show you this real quick, but with the caveat of this is not the route that I would advise taking when learning the software or how to digitize. Starting from a new design, we're going to close up Digitize and open up Auto Digitize. And then we're going to click Insert Artwork. And Insert Artwork is going to basically have you choose the artwork that you want to digitize from and click Open. All right. So that basically put it right down in here into your design. And there's a few things we can do. We can click to fill. We can click to fill without holes, outline, center line, all of these different options. I tend to actually just do click to fill because I feel like I have a little more control over it. So I'm going to do click to fill and then click on the artwork. From here, you can actually refine this. Now, this is a simple piece of artwork, so there's no need to kind of worry about, you know, reducing the number of colors or anything like that. I tend to also sanitize any image that I'm going to auto-digitize, so I don't have to really worry about it in terms of like reducing the number of colors, because nobody wants to have two colors that are so super close to each other that the whole thing blends. But you can mess with these settings to reduce the number of colors, such as this. I just dragged it down a bit. I have regrets. It's taking a while to think. Did I mention my computer's pretty beefy? Okay, so it didn't seem to care. Never mind. Click OK, and it auto-digitize. It basically creates areas that you can click to fill. And I'm going to click to fill these things in the exact same order that we did when we created the design ourselves by hand. And then I'm going to just go through exactly why I don't like this. So fill, 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 fill. Zoom in so I can click it. Fill, fill, and then get the edge. Here's why I hate it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all by default. It actually looks pretty crap. And the other thing is, like, even though it has the holes already built into it, and even built a hole for the mouth channel here, which is kind of neat, you know, if you think about it, there's like no concept of overlap, pull compensation, and that kind of scrolled a little faster than I intended. There's none of that. So this would stitch out and look horrible, and you would feel horrible. So it's a good way to have like a basis for a design, but I honestly would not use this overall. And it really just depends. So let's say we wanted to kill this with fire, but yay. Okay, we killed it with fire. We're going to insert new artwork, but it's the exact same artwork. Surprise. I don't know. I probably shouldn't have coffee before I do these videos. So we're going to do auto digitize instant embroidery. Dun, da, da, da. And that's it. It basically just did everything. I just selected the artwork and it did the thing. But here's the thing, gang. It did the exact same thing, only worse. And you're probably wondering, how could it have been worse? And yeah, so there's that. But that's where it's like, okay, well, I have a starting point, right? I have a block of clay that looks like a turd, and eventually it will look like Michelangelo, just not today. But like, let's say, okay, we're going to select that. We're going to make it tatami. There. So we've refined it a little bit. We're going to, you know, go over here and select the border and go to effects. I'm sorry, stitching, I meant, and the width. Or there's the pull compensation there, but where's the oh, it's a fill. I'm sorry. It created a fill shape for this. So if you were to go to reshape, look at all those dots. Look at how inefficient that is. So if you think back to when we were doing the original, if you go back to the video portion where we're making this, where I did 4 clicks, just 4, with the right button in order to create the circle as an outline. And then you see that, like, it's not efficient. It really isn't. And so, like, use that sparingly, like as needed, to get an idea of what you could do. Sometimes things turn out great. Sometimes things are not so great, but I do tend to like to manually digitize. Apart from that, I hope this tutorial helped you, and thank you for tuning in.